It's to have the other person feel good in my presence so I can feel good. I'm actually realizing it's even deeper than the other person. It's if I can make this person have a good experience, then I have a good experience and I feel good throughout my life, every encounter I have. And I think as we talked about the first blush, we kind of gave our first answers and then we realized there's a level deeper, like you talked about just now. It's actually about your ability to reframe what what the goodness could be out of something is what you're actually looking for from your encounters. You're looking to learn and teach, but to probably learn even more than teach. You actually learn by teaching, and I'm looking to feel good by helping other people feel good.
I'm very fortunate that I get a lot of opportunities to teach, though.
Yes.
I think I don't think other ENTPs get as many opportunities. So I think that's why they enter social situations almost like
trolling,
like bottlenecked.
Yeah, they're desperate to engage in that.
Yeah, they're desperate to and teaching is it's rewarding to ENTP types in a way that's kind of difficult to communicate, I think, to other types. Like we get something out of it that's really fundamental to us. Probably because introverted thinking, they call it that parent function. So it's like part of how we feel like we contribute to the world. But we also, I learn as I'm talking. Like I get to hear what I'm about to say. And then when I say it, I get to realize that either I figured that out on the fly or I already knew it, but I wasn't able to access it through silence. Like there's a bunch of information in my head that I don't get to access until I'm talking, right? Because my introverted sensing is fourth function. And so that's the function that allows me to go inside and like sort of access all the cold experiences and memories and all the things I know. And it's like, silence is a very difficult way for me to go access that stuff, right? I have to be working on a problem with introverted thinking and figuring it out and sort of having an inner dialogue, sort of creating distinctions, or I need to be saying it. And so teaching another person is as rewarding an experience as I think I have. And maybe other ENTPs don't feel this way, but I suspect most of us do.
I mean, and it's to sort of work off both of what you said. So one thing I really loved in the years I was teaching is to be able to set up experiences for people. So experiential learning for a couple of reasons. One is that, students complain about their other classes. I think a lot of, especially when I was teaching in social science, I'm like, they're learning sort of useless stuff. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just useless. What's a way to bypass all of that? And I can't necessarily trust everything I know is true, but what I can do is create experiences for people, to create a frame around it, and then to help facilitate what happens inside of that. And one of my favorite moments in teaching was when a student who had ENFP preferences, because we did type over several courses, and he was a senior by then, and he came up to me, and so we had been outdoors for 75 minutes, and there's this whole, like, the students are running around and interacting with each other, and they're following these little cards, and it's basically like a live group simulation. And he came up to me and he said, "Professor, like, don't take this the wrong way, but I just realized, based on the way everyone behaved here, that everything I've learned in the past 4 years is wrong." And I was so stoked to hear that. For me, that's like victory as a teacher. And I mean, he didn't mean my class, fortunately. But for me, it's like, it's creating that frame for people to have their experiences.
Yeah.
And that's not something necessarily that happens in a social, like going to a party or something like that. Right. It could be in like setting up and hosting something. But for the most part, I enjoyed that in my work. But there was a lot of things built in that you've mentioned, like there's the mentor-mentee, student-teacher kind of dynamic that I think a lot of NTs resonate with, just inherently. Even if they're not teachers, they may be mentors or something like that. Whereas like NFs, for example, love like the romantic companion role, like concept. And I think that for various types, there are sort of, or temperaments, function pairs that they really gravitate towards those. And if you come up and you're talking about communicating with people, if you happen to fall into one of those, then that really can be like the person is just projecting onto you and like wants you to fulfill the role and wants to have communication. And then the question is like, are you actually communicating, or is it you're just sharing projections with each other?
Yeah. I do want to make a clarification when I say it's like special for ENTPs to teach. I think all types are teachers, and they all find reward in teaching in different contexts. ENTPs tend to fit the know-it-all teacher archetype. Like we just sort of show up, like just
Your words.
Yeah. No, I know. I've said this many times on the podcast. I'm a know-it-all teacher. I know that. And so it's hard to not create every single interaction into that, right? Unless you're just hanging out with your friends and like laughing about something or joking or bantering or in rapport. It's hard to still the compulsion of turning every interaction into some sort of like teaching lesson.
Oh, and in fact, this is when I'm with somebody who very well-meaningly in a social situation brings up that Dario does this or Dario does that, or heaven forbid, like my parents. I'm mortified, not because I know it's a danger for me to suddenly start talking, and it's like I'm not going to shut up,
right?
Because
exactly.
it's like, don't open that door, don't open it. Like I'm doing perfectly fine on the own. Yes.
Yeah. Pandora's box has been opened.
Yes,
no.
yeah.
And so I think I'm very fortunate that I get a microphone on a regular basis. So all of that ENTP compulsion to constantly and perpetually be outputting, and like teaching, that's very well sated. And so because of that, when I go into social interactions, I don't feel that sense of urgency. And so I can kick over more into what can I learn from this person? What can I receive?
Yeah.
What do they have to offer me? And so I think that might be, for those of you who are ENTPs out there, if your breast fit type is ENTP, maybe that's a pro tip.